Let's stick with UAPs, the infamous object we've spoken about so much, a three-eye atlas, back in the headlines right now. A new scan revealing the possible presence of nuclear fuel inside of it.
NASA's most powerful space telescope just detected nuclear fuel leaking off an object that entered our solar system from outside. The object is 12 billion years old. It just passed Jupiter, and nobody can explain what it did there. That object is Three-Eye Atlas. For months, scientists have been tracking it, just the third confirmed interstellar object ever discovered. But unlike the objects that came before it, Three-Eye Atlas isn't just passing through, it's screaming. The latest spectroscopic data from Webb has identified a massive concentrated plume of deuterium venting from the object's core. To the average person, deuterium is just heavy hydrogen. But to a nuclear physicist, it's something else entirely. It is the primary fuel for nuclear fusion, the very power source we've been trying to master on Earth for decades to achieve unlimited energy. This unusual signature was discovered by the James Webb Space Telescope, JWST, the most sensitive and powerful observatory humanity has ever built, detected massive concentrations of deuterium venting off the surface of Three-Eye Atlas. Deuterium is not a rare or exotic element in the context of a laboratory, but in space, in the coma of an interstellar object, the levels detected around Three-Eye Atlas are 1,000 times the cosmic average. And when you compare its specificity to comets, the category of object Three-Eye Atlas has been officially classified as it is 14 times higher than any comet humanity has ever observed and measured, 14 times higher than Comet 67P, which the European Space Agency's Rosetta spacecraft spent years studying at extremely close range. When those numbers came back from JWST, Avi Loeb responded. Avi Loeb is a Harvard astrophysicist, the former chair of Harvard's astronomy department, and one of the most credentialed and simultaneously controversial scientists working today. He has spent years arguing against significant institutional resistance, that we should take the possibility of extraterrestrial technology seriously as a scientific hypothesis rather than dismissing it as a cultural taboo. When the deuterium data landed, he looked at those numbers and asked publicly, in interviews on record, whether what we are seeing around Three-Eye Atlas could be a technological signature, the exhaust of something running, the leak of something powered, the detectable output of an object that is not geological in nature but mechanical. That is a Harvard scientist using those words about something currently inside our solar system. Three-Eye Atlas formed approximately 10 to 12 billion years ago. Take a moment with that number. Our Sun is 4.6 billion years old. Earth is 4.5 billion years old. The entire solar system you have ever known, every planet, every moon, every asteroid belt, every comet we have catalogued and named, all of it formed after this object already existed. When our Sun was nothing more than a slowly collapsing cloud of hydrogen and dust, this thing was already ancient by any definition of the word. It had already been traveling through the galaxy for billions of years before the first grain of Earth ever condensed out of a protoplanetary disk. And after all that time, after crossing the unimaginable distances of interstellar space, it arrived here in our solar system, leaking what we use to power fusion reactors at 1,000 times the expected concentration. If that is a comet, it is the strangest comet in the entire history of human astronomy. But the deuterium signature is only the beginning of this story. Because before anyone pointed JWST at this object, before the nuclear fuel data ever came in, scientists were already deeply unsettled by something far more fundamental. Something you don't need a spectrometer to find troubling. Something visible in the most basic data point of all, the path it took to get here. When natural objects from interstellar space enter a solar system, they arrive chaotically. They plunge in from steep, unpredictable angles, cutting across the orbital plane at wild, random trajectories. They are debris, rocks, and ice ejected from distant star systems billions of years ago, sent tumbling into the void on whatever vector their original ejection happened to give them. The direction is random, the angle is random, the approach is messy. That is what every model of interstellar object behavior predicts, and that is what the first two confirmed interstellar visitors, one I Oumuamua and two I Borisov, broadly conformed to. Three-Eye Atlas came in flat, almost perfectly flat, within 5 degrees of the ecliptic plane, the thin, flat disk in which all 8 of our planets orbit the Sun. The mathematical odds of a naturally tumbling piece of interstellar debris arriving at precisely that angle by pure chance are extraordinarily small. but the angle is almost secondary to what that angle made possible. Because of how flat and precise its approach was, 3I Atlas executed in one single unbroken pass what scientists are calling a grand tour of the inner solar system. It swept past Venus, then Mars, then Earth, three rocky planets, the three planets in our solar system that exist within the habitable zone, the three candidates for life, the one planet that we know for certain hosts, an intelligent, technologically active civilization. All three observed in one clean, geometrically efficient arc before the object curved outward toward the gas giants. If you asked an aerospace engineer to design the optimal survey path for a probe entering the solar system for the first time, they would produce something that looks almost exactly like the trajectory 3I Atlas flew. Come in flat, use the ecliptic geometry, sweep the inner targets first, then use the gravitational architecture of the outer system for the second phase. That is not a random rock following random physics. That is a flight plan. And the second phase of that flight plan led directly to Jupiter. In March 2026, 3I Atlas made its Jupiter approach. And this is the chapter of the story that has produced the most careful, hedged, and, some would say, deliberately vague language from the scientific community. It passed Jupiter at a distance of 53.6 million kilometers. In orbital mechanics, every massive body has what is known as a Hill radius, the gravitational sphere of influence within which that body's gravity dominates over the sun's gravity. Inside the Hill radius, objects can be gravitationally captured. At the edge of the Hill radius, objects can be gently transferred into long-duration stable orbits using the absolute minimum expenditure of energy. It is, by definition, the most efficient location to deploy something if you want it to stay. The least detectable, most energy-conservative parking distance a spacecraft could use around a planet. Jupiter's Hill radius is 53.2 million kilometers. 3I Atlas passed at 53.6 million kilometers. The margin between those two numbers is smaller than the distance from Earth to the Moon. You are free to call that a coincidence. But consider seriously what it would mean if it wasn't. Consider the possibility that this object did not simply fly past Jupiter, but used it. Used Jupiter's crushing gravitational dominance the way a spacecraft uses a gravity assist, not to accelerate outward but to quietly offload. 2SI, 2LEs, are the single most fuel-efficient and gravitationally stable distance possible, something small enough and dark enough that our telescopes wouldn't catch it in the chaos of a high-speed flyby. Something placed carefully into a long, stable orbit in the shadow of the largest planet in our solar system. Something that could sit there, silent and patient, and watch. Watch Earth. Watch us. Watch what we do next. And at the exact moment this was happening, during the closest, most critical phase of 3I Atlas's Jupiter approach, humanity's only active spacecraft in the Jovian system was Juno, the probe that has been orbiting Jupiter since 2016, and Juno was running critically low on fuel. There was not enough propellant remaining to redirect it for a meaningful close-range observation of the flyby. At the single most scientifically important moment in the entire passage of this object through our solar system, the one set of eyes we had anywhere near Jupiter was forced to look away. After the Jupiter encounter, 3I Atlas began its final acceleration out of the solar system. But even its departure didn't follow the rules. Comets have tails. This is one of the most basic and reliable facts in astronomy. The tail forms because solar wind, the constant outward stream of charged particles radiating from the sun, sweeps lighter material off the comet's surface and pushes it behind the comet, pointing away from the sun. This happens without exception. Every comet, every time. It is so consistent and so physically predictable that it is used as a teaching example in introductory astronomy courses worldwide. 3I Atlas formed a concentrated jet of material pointing directly toward the sun, not away from it, not sideways, straight at it. The opposite direction to every comet in recorded history. Some researchers have framed this as potentially consistent with a directed deflection system, something on or in the object actively pushing back against solar radiation, protecting its structure from the intense particle bombardment it was about to face as it accelerated to the inner solar system and out the other side. Others have suggested the expelled material itself, described as unusually large, centimeter-scale chunks rather than the fine dust typical of comets, could indicate the shedding of a hull or outer shell that was no longer needed once the inner system survey was complete. Either way, it does not behave like ice sublimating under heat. It behaves like something managing its own exposure to energy. 3I Atlas is now leaving our solar system at 58 kilometers per second on a hyperbolic trajectory. It will not return. There is no orbital period, no second pass, no future opportunity to study it up close. Whatever it is, it came once and it is leaving once, accelerating back toward the galactic center into the interstellar dark it emerged from. What it leaves behind is a scientific community that cannot reconcile a single one of its measurements. The age is wrong for a natural object. The deuterium concentration is wrong. The flight path angle is wrong. The inner solar system sweep is wrong. The Jupiter approach distance is wrong. The outgassing direction is wrong. The debris size is wrong. Not one anomaly. Not two. Every parameter, every measurement, every observable characteristic this object presented to our instruments returned a result that does not fit the models we have built over centuries of studying natural space objects. There are ways to interpret that. One interpretation is that 3I Atlas is a genuine natural outlier, a cosmic freak accident so far outside the statistical distribution that it breaks every template we have. Science has outliers. They exist. Another interpretation is that our models simply aren't good enough yet, that deep space produces objects through processes we haven't discovered, and this is one of them. That is also scientifically legitimate. Models get revised. But there is a third interpretation, that it is exactly what it looks like. Something constructed, something dispatched, something that entered the solar system on a precisely calculated trajectory, methodically surveyed every planet capable of supporting life, approached Jupiter at the exact gravitational threshold needed to silently deploy long-term observation technology into stable orbit, and then fired its engines and left, its mission complete, its instruments in place, its data already transmitting somewhere in the galaxy that we cannot point a telescope at. Avi Loeb didn't rule that out. He said that on record, at Harvard, about an object that was, at that moment, inside our solar system. If any version of the docking hypothesis is correct, if something was left behind at Jupiter during that suspiciously precise flyby, then whatever it is still there right now, in a stable orbit around the largest planet in our solar system, watching, waiting, sending back information about a small blue planet it was sent here specifically to observe, and we have absolutely no idea where to look for it. Do you think 3I Atlas is a natural object, or is something out there watching us right now? Drop your theory below.